My husband, Daniel, and I married on February 9th, 2010. To ease the financial strain, we combined our Valentine's Day and anniversary celebrations. Early years saw simple, budget-friendly affairs. But as our finances improved, we ventured beyond London. Around Christmas 2016, while planning our Valentine's getaway, I discovered the alluring world of cottage decor. Though its then current iteration differed from the pandemic-era explosion on social media, my inspiration stemmed from Japanese Mori fashion muted tones of beige, brown, off-white, light green, and earthy red, accented by natural fabrics like cotton, linen, wool, and leather. The idea of a secluded country cottage for Valentine's weekend captivated me. Daniel agreed, and we began our search. We settled on a charming cottage in North Yorkshire, booking it from Friday, February 12th, to Sunday the 14th, with plans to return home Monday morning. By early February, anticipation mounted. Work had been relentless, the weather bleak, and two appliances teetered on the brink of collapse. This escape was desperately needed. Valentine's Day dawned, and we caught the earliest train to York, then a taxi to the cottage. It exceeded expectations. Many urban photos are deceptively angled, but this cottage's fixtures and fittings were impeccable. We luxuriated in the enormous upstairs tub, later enjoying pub fare in a nearby village before returning to the cottage. The next morning was idyllic. No work, no worries, just the two of us and a weekend of blissful coziness. After bacon and eggs, and a long, steamy shower, we settled into the living room, phones switched off. Our seclusion was almost complete. Few knew our whereabouts. The cottage's remote location made the afternoon's events all the more jarring. And not three sharp, insistent bangs pierced the peaceful silence. A prickle of unease ran down my spine. We had to answer. It might be the host with crucial information. Given our unplugged morning, we secured our robes and cautiously opened the door. A man, mid-50s to early 60s, stood there, resembling my father. Behind him, a large, plain white van idled up the driveway. His initial greeting was warm and friendly. He explained that the owners had hired his building firm for emergency renovations, requiring our temporary evacuation for 2 to 3 hours. Bewilderment washed over us. The urban host hadn't mentioned any renovations, and nothing within the cottage suggested an emergency. When we hinted at a mistake, he shrugged, a dismissive gesture, stating, "A job's a job," and inquiring about our departure time. Daniel, usually unflappable, was clearly furious at the prospect of our costly holiday being disrupted. He politely requested a few minutes to call the host. The builder's demeanor abruptly shifted. A curt, aggressive "Oi" stopped Daniel mid-sentence as he closed the door. Then, chillingly, he uttered, "I tried the easy way. Don't make me do things the hard way." Offense warred with apprehension. As he pressed for our departure, Daniel threatened to call the police before slamming the door. We didn't call immediately. Instead, I contacted the host, hoping to verify the man's claims. After a protracted wait, they denied any knowledge of renovation work. Their response to our queries about the threatening man was equally dismissive. They suggested calling the police if we felt unsafe, a recommendation that hung heavy in the air. The possibility of a full refund had been discussed. Another booking, a hasty retreat, but the hosts, elderly, kind, their rental income a supplement to their pension, had charmed us. We stayed. The unsettling visit, the BLS game, whatever that meant, felt manageable. A police call, a deterrent, perhaps. If not, we'd face it then. Had we known that had he given a hint, we'd have fled. But the cryptic warnings, the antagonism, only fueled a defensive resolve. We lacked insight into his intentions. The descent began around 6. Early evening, dusk swallowed the landscape. The stranger's visit still weighed heavily. My husband found an old cricket bat, a meager comfort. Hours passed, uneventful. We clung to hope, attempting a romantic weekend, despite lingering apprehension. Dinner could wait. The pub served until 8. A bath first. The bathroom, forward-facing, a small circular window offering a sliver of the driveway and lane. The bedroom, rear-facing, possessed charming, outward-opening windows overlooking the garden. A sound. My husband, normally stoic, impassive, rose from the tub. He peered through the glass, the expression that twisted his face. A raw, blind terror. It silenced me. "Get out," he rasped, already sprinting to the bedroom. Panic. A cold tide? What horrors lurked? Was this the apocalypse? Clothes thrown on. I bombarded him with questions. People. Masks. Outside. Hide. The connection to the earlier visitor was visceral, undeniable. Yet the specifics remained shrouded in a chilling mystery. Layers added, anticipating a flight through the back door, if the front proved untenable. Then, a shattering crash of sledgehammer, rending the front door. Our escape began. Downstairs, the devastation visible. The kitchen our target. The back door, freedom. Instead, a figure, balaclava-clad, a crowbar held menacingly. Trapped. Another joined him, a saw in hand, a chilling ultimatum. Silence my husband with the threat of my death. Terror choked my voice. Pleading, apologies, offers of retreatal met with curt commands to be silent. A pillowcase muffled my screams. Then, a demand, our phones. A flicker of hope. Perhaps not murder. Robbery. Maybe. But certainty remained elusive. The fear, a monstrous, suffocating presence, consumed me. The chilling silence, broken only by the distant, rhythmic thudding from downstairs, offered a deceptive calm. My paralysis was only partially relieved by the hammering. My husband's hushed assurances they're not after us. They're looking for something felt flimsy. The relentless pounding, a brutal percussion against the cottage's aged timbers, resonated through the floorboards. We were instructed to remain silent, a command that rendered us hyperware. Every crash, every guttural utterance from the men below, "Try this one," followed by the sickening thunk of a sledgehammer. The splintering of wood and plaster was a visceral assault. Then, a triumphant shout from downstairs. "Got it?" A frantic flurry of activity followed, the sounds muffled yet intense. Suddenly, the man guarding us leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. A low growl, barely audible, punctuated with a venomous threat. "Not a sound until we're gone. One peep, and you're both dead." Silence descended once more, heavier, more suffocating than before. Time stretched, each second an agonizing eternity. The aftershocks of terror, a tremor far more profound than the initial fear of binding and blindfolding, seized me. An emotional exhaustion, a draining wave of adrenaline, washed over me as my husband, with a skill born of desperation, freed us. My tears were a torrent, a release of pent-up dread, as his embrace offered the fragile comfort of survival. We had lived through a nightmare, rendered cruelly real. The surreal weight of it pressed down. Cautiously, we descended the stairs, each step measured, our senses straining into oppressive stillness. The cottage was a shell, devoid of life except for us. Yet, the silence itself felt menacing, the potential for reappearance of those masked figures palpable. The front room lay before us, a scene of devastation. The walls, in both rooms had been systematically destroyed, a testament to the sledgehammer's brutal efficiency. A saw and other unidentifiable tools had been deployed with ruthless abandon. Through the chaos, a pattern emerged. Most sections showed a few hammer blows. One, however, was completely annihilated, a precise excavation. They had probed, located their target, then excised it. The cavity remained empty, a hollow echo of their intent. The landline was smashed. Our only recourse was the nearby village. In the village pub, we sought refuge. Recounting our ordeal, the community rallied, offering solace in the form of drinks and condolences, a balm for my shattered nerves, though my husband, our designated driver, remained sober. Dinner, calls to authorities, and loved ones, a flurry of activity in stark contrast to the previous hours. A statement to the local constable, whose colleagues secured the cottage. Contact details exchanged. Then, the long drive back to London. Even the exhaustion of the journey couldn't fully erase the trauma. Had the assault not occurred in the dead of February, we might have stayed the final night. But all we craved was hot showers and sleep. The next morning, over breakfast, a troubling discussion began. Our suffering was undeniable, but we were unharmed. Our loss minimal insured phones. Our hosts, however, retirees who had poured their life savings into renovations, had their pension investments literally smashed to pieces. What had been taken? To whom did it belong? Its value, its illegality, warranted such extreme measures. The bindings, the blindfolds, the severed communication with the outside world. The questions multiplied, unanswered, and settling. We found no answers. Neither did the police. The owners reported nothing missing. The security footage inconclusive. Refunds, insurance claims, endless retellings, a mundane aftermath to an extraordinary and inexplicable event. The memory gnawed, a persistent, unsettling itch. It wasn't the trauma itself. Neither my brother nor I carried the weight of it visibly, but the unanswered question, the agonizing, persistent question. Sometimes I would give anything to know what lurked within that accursed wall. Hidden on Valentine's Day, 2007, at precisely 6 p.m. That evening, 23-year-old Antoine Lays, a French-Canadian, sat down to supper in his small hometown of St. Adas, Quebec. The meal finished, he donned his boots, snatched his car keys, and drove to Yamashi, a short distance away. There, he managed his small piggery, usually assisted by his older brother, Matthew. But that night, a brutal snowstorm kept Matthew occupied with plowing. Antoine, therefore, asked their father to join in. His father refused, the biting wind too much to bear, a decision he would later come to deeply regret. Antoine was expected home by 9 o'clock or 9:30 p.m. The work at the piggery usually took only 2 to 3 hours, but by 2 o'clock a.m., with no sign of Antoine, his mother began frantic calls to the piggery. When those calls went unanswered, his father and Matthew drove to Yamashi. Antoine's truck sat empty, its rear door ajar, the keys in the ignition. A chilling stillness clung to the scene. Snow dusted the interior door frame, hinting at the passage of time. The engine, upon inspection, worked perfectly. A bag containing his work clothes lay in the truck bed, the clothes stained with fresh mud. The pigs, clearly fed, further suggested Antoine's disappearance had occurred after his chores. They called his name, their voices swallowed by the chilling silence, punctuated only by the unsettling snuffling and squeals of the swine. He had vanished into thin air. Matthew and their father returned to St. Adas around 6 o'clock a.m., notifying the local hospital And the police? A massive search commenced, a frenzied ballet of tracker dogs, helicopter patrols, and countless volunteers. Hope flickered initially, but days later, a monstrous blizzard dumped nearly 3 meters of snow, blanketing the area in a suffocating white shroud. Volunteers probed the drifts with sticks, a desperate, futile dance against the unforgiving landscape. Nothing. The search, ultimately, was abandoned on February 23rd. Theories sprouted like poisonous weeds. Had Antoine traveled elsewhere? Had he taken his own life? Or had he staged a disappearance, seeking a new life under a different name? His family dismissed suicide. The provincial inquiry deemed it improbable given the absence of a note or any trace of his remains. His absconding seemed equally unlikely. His belongings remained untouched, his bank account undisturbed. Then, 3 weeks later, a chilling possibility emerged. Matthew received a call from a detective, a casual inquiry about anything unusual concerning the pig manure. Matthew, initially negative, then realized the horrific implication. Weeks had passed since he disposed of the waste. Forensic analysis had never been considered. The samples were retrieved, tested, yielding nothing. Yet, weeks had passed. Even the possibility of residual remains in the digestive tracts didn't entirely explain the absence of any trace. The horrifying thought Antoine, consumed by his own pig, swooned large. At 5 feet 8 inches and 150 pounds, he wasn't a large man. Pigs, notoriously, are capable of consuming even the largest carcasses completely, but surely Matthew would have noticed a scrap of denim, a strayed bootless amidst the waste, unless he wasn't looking. The thought was unbearable, until suggested as a disturbing, albeit remote possibility. The Quebec police acknowledged the improbability of a man passing out in the pan and being completely consumed within 5 hours, a theory they treated with a healthy dose of skepticism, yet couldn't entirely dismiss. On the 5th anniversary of Antoine's disappearance, his father, his hope dwindling under mounting financial pressures, reluctantly petitioned the provincial courthouse to declare his son legally dead. A prayer remained unspoken, a silent hope that one day Antoine would return. The legal fiction of declaring Philip deceased in absentia if only recourse to access his financial assets was a desperate act, a desperate clinging, perhaps, to the denial that such a horrific event could have befallen his son. February 12, 2015. The chilling echo of the date reverberated in his mind. A frantic call to the Halifax Royal Canadian Mounted Police. An anonymous tip, a whisper in the desolate silence, spoke of a planned massacre at the Halifax shopping centre, a cacophony of commerce, a hive of humanity teeming with tens of thousands. Valentine's Day, a Saturday, the scene set for carnage. 2 names were offered, whispered like a curse: Randall Shepard, 20, and Lindsay Savannah Raff, an American, 23, heavily armed, lethally violent. The RCMP traced the pair to the home of 19-year-old James Russian Gamble. The cold, pre-dawn hours of Friday, February 13th, a silent siege. Gamble's parents, unsuspecting, departed for errands. Their car abruptly stopped. The jarring screech of tires, the harsh metallic clang of handcuffs, the suffocating confines of a command vehicle, a barrage of questions, each one a chilling hammer blow, centered on their son. Was he home? Alone? His plans for the day? Firearms? Their answers? Fragmented, hesitant, until the final question. Yes, James possessed firearms. 3. Now, a high-caliber lever-action rifle and a 16-gauge shotgun, the tools of their son's grim design. A victory, yet a terrifying precipice. A raid could trigger a bloody conflagration. Swiftness, decisiveness were paramount. Within the hour, the Mountie SWAT team moved, a calculated storm. Each room cleared with the precise, almost balletic efficiency of a well-rehearsed symphony of violence, until only one locked door remained. The thin wood splintered under the forced entry. The silence, heavy, oppressive, broken only by the ragged breaths of the officers. Instead of gunfire, a horrifying stillness. James Russian Gamble, lifeless on his bed, a self-inflicted gunshot wound, a grim testament to his own demise. But his accomplices vanished, a chilling absence in the oppressive stillness. A bone-deep, marrow-freezing terror seized the officers. How had Gamble been alerted? No shots fired during the breach. Shepard and Wrath seemingly vanished into the shadows, leaving only a suffocating, irrational dread. Then, a dawning clarity. The anonymous tip from Gamble himself. A desperate, arguably heroic act. He had denied them their weapons. A grim sacrifice. Their names, descriptions, plastered across the emergency news broadcasts. Their capture was inevitable. But, until then, the chilling, unknowable presence of potential mass murders loomed large. Meanwhile, at Halifax Stanfield International Airport, a young man with dirty blonde hair and a black leather jacket sat in the arrivals lounge. He waited, his unease a palpable thing, for his online friend, a year of digital intimacy culminating in this clandestine meeting. The pre-clearance agreement between the U.S. and Canada afforded her a cursory passport check, but a lack of luggage, a paucity of funds, or a suspicion. The official's request for her passport again, the typing at the terminal, the sudden, stark pallor of his face, the arrival of airport security, an interview room, a lie, a flimsy cover, a Valentine's weekend rendezvous with James Gamble, a search of her backpack. The interrogation yielded little. A swastika emblazoned hot, a detail she vehemently refused to explain, seals Enya's fate. Arrested on threat charges. She remained impassive, her silence a chilling wall. The men, equally reticent, but another team unearthed a trove, Anya and two accomplices, Silas Shepard and Zara Roth's Tumblr blogs. A horrifying nexus revealed itself, a shared obsession with horror films, heavy metal, and extremist far-right ideologies. They idolized the perpetrators of the Colini High School massacre. Zara's blog, School Shooter Sheep, Violence is an Aesthetic, a pastel pink facade concealing grotesque cartoons of violent paraphilia. The irony gnawed. Anya, of Southeast Asian descent, embraced white supremacist politics, a twisted allegiance. Yet, her confused ideology masked a chilling intent. Over a week prior, Zara posted a picture, Valentine's Day. It's going down. A chilling premonition. Halifax teetered on the brink. Only an anonymous tip and swift police action averted a massacre. Silas, the first to break. The methods remain undisclosed. Yet the confession emerged. Anya and James Gamble orchestrated the attack. Silas, he claimed, was the cheerleader. The Halifax shopping center. Their target, a twisted suicide pact, romanticized by James and Anya. The charges, conspiracy to commit murder, arson, illegal weapons possession, online threats. Both Anya and Silas pleaded not guilty. Anya, unrepentant. Silas, however, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder in the following November, receiving a 10-year sentence, cooperation mitigating the punishment. Anya remained implacable, a cold stare, her only response. The judge, deeming her an ongoing threat, sentenced her to life, with a minimum of 10 years before parole eligibility. Her legal team appealed, claiming the sentence unduly harsh. Legal scholars countered. Ample opportunity for remorse was given. Yet she remained silent. The appeal failed. A chilling manifesto, found amongst the evidence, underscored the court's decision. It has always been my greatest dream to die in battle, but I do so not as a soldier, but as a murderer. One line read, references to Nietzsche, my hate is beyond good and evil. She described her violence as heroic longings, claiming to fight for principles, not politicians. What morality is depends on which end of the gun you're looking at. With the gun in your hand, I am God. The terror was palpable, yet laced with a profound melancholy. In all my 23 years of life, I have never learned to love another person. She wrote, love passes through me like water through a sieve. She celebrated isolation, the freedom from empathy, forbidden from keeping a diary. Anya scrawled her thoughts on anything available. A prison guard discovered a note on a Sudoku puzzle. It is a strange feeling to meet someone and almost immediately know that you ought to die with them. Jeans and Czechoslovak acquaintances, drawn together by shared Tumblr interests in the Collini shooting and National Socialist, transformed within a month into co-conspirators. The nightmare Nazi, her online persona, now faced the reality of the blood she sought to spill. She refused to believe that James made the anonymous call, maintaining that he took his own life out of defiance. A bitter irony, James, the planner, saved Halifax, a dubious hero, despite his abhorrent beliefs. A controversial, yet undeniable truth. The oppressive silence of the resort hung heavy, broken only by the distant, rhythmic clang of some unseen mechanism. A bone-chilling wind, a phantom caress, seemed to seep into my very marrow. Shadows danced in the periphery, mocking my perception, twisting familiar shapes into something monstrous. Lindsay, the image of her, remorseless, her threat echoing only in a body bag would she return to America, haunted the edges of my thoughts. It had been years since the holiday in Egypt, a cheap package deal to charm Alec, my grandmother, and her friend, frail from the harsh winter. Needed sun. February 9th. Heathrow. The relentless heat was a balm, a welcome respite. Yet, days bled into one another. My companions, content by the pool, their laughter a jarring contrast to the growing unease within me. Cabin fever. The word clawed its way into my consciousness. I craved the authentic pulse of the country, a taste of the unknown, something beyond the bland familiarity of the resort's European fare. The proximity of Valentine's Day intensified the yearning, a yearning for connection, a hopeless romantic. Even in my 30s, I found myself surprisingly susceptible. A gay man in a land not known for its tolerance. The usual avenues of connection seemed blocked. No welcoming bars. Tinder, a desperate hope. The app became my fleeting window to the world, revealing a handful of local profiles, buried under a sea of tourists. Then him, tall, dark, handsome, a vision, a resort manager. His English, flawless in his profile, sparked a flicker of hope. A swipe right, a silent prayer. He seemed impossibly out of reach. A fantasy. Disappointment settled in. I diverted my attention, escaping to the old town, the ancient stones whispering secrets under the sun, the bustling market, a kaleidoscope of sights and sounds. I captured the vibrant chaos in photographs, intending to share them with Grant, a silent testament to the experiences he was missing. Then, free Wi-Fi, a serendipitous connection. I logged on, eager to share my day, when a notification flashed. A Tinder match. Him. Disbelief. Impossible. His greeting, a simple hello, sent a tremor through me. Half an hour passed in a whirlwind of messages exchanged while I strolled. A stupid grin plastered across my face. He invited me to dinner. Pasta. Homemade pasta. The sheer absurdity of it, the unexpectedness of it, threatened to overwhelm me. A text. A promise. Back at the resort, Grandma noticed the glow, the unmistakable light of nascent romance. Her questioning, her giggling with her friend, felt like a blessing, a shared anticipation. A friend for dinner, maybe more. Now, that's what I'll call him. His address, near the old town. A simple instruction. No wine, he said. Just pasta, the sauce simmering on the stove, and the promise of something more. The anticipation was a suffocating blanket. The silence now a premonition. The anticipation had been intoxicating, a feverish excitement that eclipsed any rational caution. To meet Elias, that was all that mattered. The thought of consequences, if it ever flickered across my mind, was instantly dismissed. A naive bubble of longing, impervious to reality, shielded me from the potential horror. His online persona painted a picture of affluence, a sharp contrast to the crumbling tenement I now approached. Doubt, a frail tendril of unease, snaked through my mind. This building, it wasn't what I expected, but self-doubt was swiftly banished. My heart overruled my gut, a fatal error. The apartment number matched. A heavy silence met my knock, a void that pressed against my ears. Chilling. No smooth jazz. No culinary aromas. Only a suffocating hush. Then, the door opened, revealing not Elias, but a stranger, a stout man with a beard, unsettlingly familiar with my name. Catfishing. The thought, cold and sharp, pierced through the confusion. He spoke, his accented English oddly reassuring. Don't worry, he said, his voice oddly warm. I know you and Elias have a meeting. I'll be gone when he returns. A flicker of relief, foolishly brief. I wasn't entirely stupid. Declining his invitation to enter, I opted to wait outside. A polite refusal. The change in his demeanor was instantaneous. Chilling. His smile vanished, replaced by a mask of absolute stillness. My blood ran cold, a premonition of impending doom. Halfway down the stairs, a roar of fury echoed above. A man's voice, enraged, fear, raw and primal, propelled me downwards. He was chasing me. Then, a sudden reprieve. Two figures materialized at the street's edge, like guardian angels, police officers, but their gaze, intense and unforgiving, extinguished any hope. They weren't there to help. Death stared back at me. Wait, I cried, but the words were swallowed by the rising tide of panic. A heavy wooden baton materialized in one officer's hand. Memories fracture here, fragments of a brutal reality. I was back in the apartment, the details blurred. Punches, kicks, a senseless assault, questions, harsh and probing. In broken English, I tried to answer, but blood filled my mouth, choking my words. Each attempt to speak triggered a fresh wave of violence. Then, the questions shifted, probing into my sexuality, my reasons for being in that part of town. The pieces, though scattered, began to coalesce. The invitation, a lure. The police, complicit. Gabashinga, sickeningly familiar concept from my home country, became intertwined with the unthinkable, state-sponsored violence. The relief that washed over me when handcuffs clamped onto my wrists was a perverse comfort. The beatings would cease. A semblance of legal process would begin. A fool's hope. They continued to beat me. Any moment they could. The cell's cold, damp air seeped into my bones. A jarring thud. Were they kicking me, throwing me against the wall? The interrogation followed. A chillingly simple accusation, debauchery, The word itself was alien, a foreign legal concept I couldn't grasp. This ignorance fueled a terror that clawed at my sanity, each minute stretching into an eternity of agonizing uncertainty. My nerves frayed. Then, a lifeline. A man from the British Foreign Office. The relief at being addressed as a human being, not a nameless inmate, was overwhelming. Tears threatened, a choked sob battling for release. His name was Martin. His arrival, a beacon in the darkness, was quickly eclipsed by his news. Egypt, it seemed, had criminalized intimacy outside of marriage. Article 9. The euphemism for a law targeting homosexuality. 3 years. The words hung in the air. A physical blow. Panic threatened to consume me. Martin, however, exuded a calm authority that soothed my fraying nerves. He spoke of leverage, of pressure on the Egyptian government. But this assistance came with a chilling condition: silence. I don't recall. And my intentions were purely platonic, were to be my only responses. Repeat them, he insisted, until I was blue in the face. His words, though reassuring, were laced with a grim determination that mirrored the stakes. Don't say a bloody thing, he repeated, his voice low and urgent. Everything hinges on your silence. His warning proved prophetic. The final interrogation was a sickening display of manipulative tactics. The officers, suddenly charming, offered freedom in exchange for a confession. The feigned geniality was nauseating. Their true intentions, a prison sentence, were thinly veiled. I adhered to Martin's instructions. Silence. And then, release. The reunion with my grandmother, the tears, the apologies, a private agony I will not revisit, a brief phone call with Martin. No further charges. Relief washed over me. But the enormity of the situation remained. He was just doing his job, he said, a cog in the governmental machine. But to me, he was a heroine, unassuming hero who had appeared amidst my despair. Valentine's Day. Coffee. Then, his suggestion, the observatory, and our long bus ride. A hike through the encroaching darkness of the woods. I shivered, my summer dress woefully inadequate against the cold, my heels treacherous on the uneven ground. He spoke to the trees. It seemed, his words lost in the oppressive silence, his gaze icy whenever I attempted conversation. A chilling premonition settled over me. A hiker discovering my lifeless body. The observatory loomed, a cold, stark silhouette against the darkening sky. I was on the verge of collapse. The fear a palpable weight. Then, another couple. The sight of them provided an unexpected reprieve. We talked of UFOs, his strange tales a distraction from the gnawing unease. I wish I had heeded the warnings about Wyatt. Oh, the horrors some romantic partners can unleash. He seemed perfect at first, charming, witty, handsome, an open book. He claimed, objectively, he was strikingly attractive. Everyone was instantly smitten. But that initial charm concealed a darkness I only glimpsed too late. The initial attraction to Wyatt had been undeniable. His affability was captivating. He charmed everyone. A few dates ensued, pleasant enough, yet devoid of that spark. We discussed it, parted amicably, retaining a friendship. Over the months, our bond deepened. We confided in each other, offering solace and advice regarding our respective romantic lives, or lack thereof. In my case, his friendship became invaluable, surpassing all others. Years passed. Wyatt began a relationship, then vanished from social media, our conversations dwindling to a near standstill. I didn't take it personally. The distance had already begun. His absence became complete. His number was disconnected. his online presence non-existent. Then, one night at the bar, overheard snippets of conversation painted a bleak picture. A disastrous breakup, a hasty relocation, a new beginning. Far away, a pang of sadness, of regret at his silence, resonated within me. He could have reached out. I would have been there. Time marched on, erasing Wyatt from my immediate thoughts, until that Friday. The familiar bar buzzed with activity. The scene, cinematic in its suddenness. He walked in, as handsome as ever. I abandoned mid-conversation, engulfing him in a hug, a rush of nostalgia washing over me. We talked for hours, reliving memories, the old Wyatt resurfacing. Only later did a detail strike me. He never ordered a drink, a strange oversight, and noticed at the time. He came to my apartment, under the spell of reunion. We kissed. The kiss ignited something. Newly single and vulnerable, I succumbed to the pull of familiarity, granting him a second chance. A chance outside the boundaries of friendship. Yet, a persistent unease lingered, a whisper of doubt. He avoided our bar on odd request, but not inherently alarming. Some people have preferences. For a month, we steered clear. Then, my friends pleaded, insisting on our usual haunt. I relayed the situation to Wyatt. A flicker of apprehension crossed his face. He acquiesced, though with a palpable unease. My independence meant I wasn't tethered to him 24/7. I met my friends around 9:30. Wyatt promised to collect me at midnight. As I ordered, the bartender's eyes widened, a look of stark warning. She served me, avoiding all eye contact. A silent accusation hung in the air. I dismissed it, joining my friends. Yet, periodically, her gaze returned, and settling, piercing. Approaching midnight, I paid, heading to the restroom. The bartender followed, locking the door behind her. A wave of dread washed over me. Tears streamed down her face. "Gina," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're Gina, right?" My hesitant affirmation triggered a desperate plea. "Please tell me you're not dating him. If you are, you need to end it." My defenses rose. Jealousy? An ex? "Listen to me," she cried, her voice tight with urgency. "I used to date Wyatt. He constantly compared me to you. Why can't you be more like Gina? Gina would do this. I'm happier with Gina. I came to hate you before I knew you. Then, I found it on his computer, a folder. Hundreds, thousands of pictures of you. Pictures taken everywhere. You driving, walking, pictures of you. Dates, photograph 7 images of me within my own home. Huey text plot, a digital purge. Everything erased. Threats whispered, a vanishing act. Then, the other night, a bar. His eyes, a familiar flicker. The pieces, fragmented, coalesced. Wyatt. My heart, a frantic drum against my ribs. Belief, doubt, a suffocating uncertainty. Why hadn't she contacted the police? The question hung, unanswered, a chilling void. Jealousy, exaggeration. It felt that wrong, uncharacteristic of Wyatt. A stilted thank you, a plea to release me from the bathroom's cold embrace. The door unlatched. She remained, head bowed, a statue of fear. If this is a fabrication, I thought, this woman is a master of deception. Trembling, pale as the moon's reflection on winter snow. A little after midnight, Wyatt's arrival. The car, a false sense of security. I repeated the bartender's tale. Silence, a search for words. An evasion disguised as hesitancy. Not denial, but this, Gina. I loved you so much. My gaze met his, fixed on the road ahead. Who are you? The words choked. A desperate plea for understanding. Is this true? The photographs. No answer. Only acceleration. 75. 80. 85. A relentless climb towards 100 miles per hour. Panic. A scream lost in the wind's howl. A treacherous curve. He didn't turn. We soared. A projectile against the unforgiving guardrail. Shattering glass. The world tilted. A dizzying descent down a steep incline. The hill, en mercy. The momentum bled away. A blackout. Brief. Merciful. Wyatt. Unconscious behind the wheel. My head. A crimson waterfall. Yet, coherent. 911. An impossibly swift arrival. Treatment. Wyatt's awakening. Groggy. Disoriented. My confession to the police. A torrent of words detailing the evening's horrors. The reckless speed. The implied threat. The photographs. A seemingly disregarded detail. The charges pressed. The driving incident. The unaddressed images. Murderous intent. Or a madness that consumed him in that instant. Wyatt. A man I thought I knew. A chasm of horror opened, revealing a stranger. A survival. A stroke of luck. A haunting reminder of a warning ignored. Thank God. He's incarcerated. The pictures. An investigation underway. A potential crime to amplify his sentence. To secure a future imprisonment. Life's cruel irony. Months prior. A move. A new town. An hour from my childhood home. A quiet suburb. A stark contrast to my past. A neighbor. Artie. Unthinkable. A name from a forgotten past. Now resurrected. Childhood games. Tag. Bikes. The boisterous chaos of youth. Among the throng. Rye. My gaming companion. The nascent video game era. Hours lost. Screens glowing in the night. Artie. A frequent sleepover guest. Our late-night gaming marathons. 5th grade. Their departure. A few calls. Then silence. MySpace's fleeting connection. A fading echo. Facebook's void. A distant memory. And then, the shock. My neighbor. Artie. The reunion was astonishing. Elias. A friend from childhood. Unexpectedly resided nearby. He'd moved away to the East Coast as a child. His return to the West Coast felt surreal. A casual query about his relocation elicited a simple, almost dismissive, response, a preference for the West Coast. After settling in, I invited Elias for a beer. He arrived with 2 companions, a man named Scott and a woman, Jean. The intrusion felt inappropriate, not the presence itself, but the presumption. From the moment they entered, an unsettling energy filled the room. Scott and Jane's eyes darted about, cataloging my belongings with an unnerving intensity. Their gazes were vacant, detached. A creeping unease settled in my stomach. The silence, punctuated by their hushed whispers, pressed down. I steered the conversation toward video games, a shared passion from our youth. Elias's reaction was unexpected. A sneer contorted his features. Video games? Child's play. He scoffed, his tone dripping with disdain. I feigned amusement, mirroring his arrogance. Oh, I missed that memo, I retorted, a forced laugh escaping my lips. I still play and, in fact, I developed them. An awkward, brittle laughter rippled through the group. Yet, the revelation altered the atmosphere. Their interest piqued. Scott peppered me with pointed questions, focusing on my work computer, its use, the specifics of my projects. I revealed details about my studio work, my indie game, everything. We continued for a time, then parted ways. The following day, I saw Elias outside, a furrow etched in his brow, a look of frustration. That night, absorbed in my game, the shrill chime of my phone pulled me from the code. A motion sensor alert. My security camera footage. 3 figures on my doorstep. Masked. Hooded medical masks. Not Halloween masks. 2 stood back, while one approached the door. He turned, revealing something concealed at his waist. A chilling, deliberate movement. He tested the doorknob. Then, a woman's voice, sharp and urgent, cut through the night. Wait. A finger pointed to the camera. The figure, backlit, turned directly into the camera. Despite the mask, recognition struck with icy certainty. It was Elias. His eyes widened. Panic flared in their depths. Scott and Jane fled. Elias took a hesitant step back, then lunged at the door, rattling the handle. A muttered phrase, unintelligible, followed. Then he, too, ran. I immediately contacted the police. The footage, a damning record. Days later, I spotted Elias sneaking back into his house. The police arrived swiftly. His arrest revealed a string of home invasions. Another victim's Ring camera footage, obtained from weeks prior, sealed his fate. No masks that time. The chilling silence of the night was broken only by the sirens. The ache of loss resonated, a dull throb in my chest. A dear friend, a source of cherished memories, had vanished down a chasm of darkness. Thankfully, my motion-activated camera and Ring doorbell silent sentinel had preserved me from a fate far worse. Never assume immunity from misfortune, regardless of your surroundings. My neighborhood, a haven of tranquility, almost devoid of crime, offered no protection against the insidious tendrils of the unknown. Without those watchful eyes, this account might never have been told. The isolation that accompanied my relocation, a necessary sacrifice for my career, was a bitter pill to swallow. Making friends, a perennial struggle, was compounded by my inherent awkwardness. Relocation for work hundreds of miles from home had been a wrenching decision. Yet, the imperative nature of my work, and its generous compensation, proved compelling. My plan, to earn, and then return, a few years, I reasoned, and my contract would be fulfilled. The first month was a desolate expanse. Evenings blurred into monotonous routines, solitary meals, video games, endless streaming. Loneliness, that insidious predator, began to circle. Then, a beacon emerged, a comic book store, a mere 5-minute drive from my new dwelling. Comics, a lifelong passion, ignited by childhood fascination with vibrant illustrations even before I could decipher the words themselves, offered solace. I frequented the shop, a sanctuary where familiar heroes awaited. My loneliness remained, yet the comfort of these paper worlds offered a much-needed respite. I began visiting twice weekly. My enthusiasm rekindled. One day, while browsing the latest Aravol's new Fantastic Four issue firmly in handy, was accosted by a peculiar individual. Tall, gaunt, sporting thick black glasses, and shoulder-length blonde hair. His beard, a patchy, uneven landscape, added to his unconventional appearance. I moved aside, assuming he sought access to the shelves. But he halted me. "Hey, man," he drawled, his voice thick with a southern accent. "Fantastic Four fan?" I nodded, a hesitant smile playing on my lips. Awkward encounters were not my forte. "You're gonna love this," he continued, his words tumbling over each other. "He really knows how to write the F4. Name's Pete," he added, a chuckle escaping his lips. "Not Peter Parker, though." I mirrored his laughter, referencing the alter ego of Spider-Man. Extending my hand, I introduced myself. From that improbable encounter, a friendship bloomed. Pete and I met several times a week, our conversations a whirlwind of shared passions: comics, Star Wars, Video game as a communion of nerdy enthusiasms. He seemed custom designed for my existence. For months, this idyllic friendship flourished, a comforting presence in my new life. One afternoon, as we left the store, Pete remarked, "You know, I think it was fate. You moving here, walking into that shop. It's like you're me, but from the multiverse." A typical Peteism, a comic book reference seemingly pulled from thin air. I laughed, as I often did with his whimsical pronouncements. Soon, a disquieting pattern emerged. Pete began mirroring my wardrobe. My Fantastic Four shirt, worn weekly, inexplicably appeared in his rotation. My Darth Vader tee. He had a duplicate. It wasn't impossible for coincidences to occur, but the frequency felt uncanny. Then, he dramatically altered his appearance, shearing his hair and shaving his beard, adopting my own clean-shaven look. "Now," he declared, a note of unsettling intensity in his voice, "we could pass as twins. Do you think maybe we are from the multiverse?" The flippancy had vanished. This felt different. Wrong. I deflected, changing the subject to food. My unease palpable. That evening, a seed of doubt took root. His mannerisms, his gaze, his very cadence, everything felt off. I considered texting him, confessing my unease, but dismissed it as paranoia. The following morning, as I prepared for work, I saw what I thought was Pete's car. Paranoia, I told myself, ignoring the disquiet. I received a text from Pete, confirming our plans for the comic book store that evening. Despite a growing unease, I replied affirmatively. The hours at work crawled by. A disquieting unease had settled upon me, a nameless dread that clawed at the edges of my composure. I'd excused myself from work early, pleading illness to my supervisor. The words a fragile mask for the turmoil within. Home, the sanctuary it should have been, felt violated. The inner door, always meticulously secured, stood ajar. A cold dread, visceral and sharp, pierced me. My collectibles, a treasure trove of comics and Funko Pops worth thousands, were at risk. My steps were cautious as I entered, the silence heavy, thick as a shroud. A faint rustling emanated from my office, the repository of my cherished possessions. I crept to the side door, peering inside. There, amidst the shadowed recesses of my closet, was Pete, rummaging through boxes. "Pete," I burst in, the question a strangled cry. He startled, stammering, a torrent of unconvincing explanations tumbling from his lips. A comic. Surprise. The words were clumsy, halting, unlike his usual speech. My desk drawers gaped open, the computer screen aglow. My social security card lay exposed. Next to Pete, a box sat open, its contents a chilling betrayal. My rarest comics, some worth over $5,000, alongside personal financial documents. He paused, his gaze darting around the room, the familiar accent strangely absent. Then, with a sudden, terrifying shift, he seized the desk lamp, wrenching it from the wall and hurling it at me. The blow dazed me, and before I could react, a brutal fist slammed into my face, sending me sprawling. A disorienting fog descended, the world blurring into a chaotic swirl. I heard the roar of a departing engine, the screech of tires, a final, cruel punctuation to the assault. He was gone, taking the box with him. The police arrived. I gave them Pete's, or rather, his information. The chilling realization dawned. Pete was not a friend. I never knew his last name. A careless oversight now laced with bitter regret. Our communication was solely through texts. His phone a cheap, untraceable device, a tool for his insidious deception. The police revealed the truth. Pete knew about my valuables, had cultivated our friendship for his own malevolent purposes. Thankfully, he'd taken only a fraction of my possessions, but the loss of those comics, their sentimental value far exceeding their monetary worth, was a wound that ached deeply. Days bled into weeks. One comic reappeared, recovered from a pawn shop. The pawnbroker's recollection of the transaction was unsettling. Pete had used my name, a double take, a phantom echo of myself in the shop's records. The encounter left me shaken, a stark reminder of the chilling depths of human depravity. The unanswered questions gnawed at me. Who was he? Where were the rest of my comics? The terror lingered, a cold shadow that stretched long after the events had passed. Her shower, a protracted ordeal, ended with her emerging, taut and anxious. Again, I asked if she was all right. A curt, annoyed yes silenced me. I retreated, attributing her behavior to a private struggle. This wasn't her, not the woman I'd known for 2 decades, loved for 10. The next morning, the shower revealed a disturbing detail. A crimson residue, a dried ring beneath the soap dispenser. It clung to the crevices. A disturbing stain. Curiosity, not alarm, initially predominated. That afternoon, Shauna, a woman I instinctively distrusted, was at the house. Her past, recounted in breathless whispers, hinted at a reckless youth. I didn't know how my girlfriend knew her coworker, a client. Her presence unsettled me. My girlfriend and Shauna's interactions felt off. A hurried closing of the laptop as I entered the kitchen. Furtive glance at something was profoundly wrong. My girlfriend's face betrayed her, a mask of concealed turmoil. I dared not pry. In the bedroom, changing clothes, I heard hushed, tense whispers. The door slammed. Shauna was leaving, speeding away. My girlfriend, usually vibrant, was a shadow of her former self, pale, exhausted, zombie-like. Infidelity wasn't the immediate thought, not in her character. Yet, something was amiss. Reluctantly, I opened the laptop. The last page remained open, a website hawking weapons, a site utterly foreign to me. Illicit, disturbing. My girlfriend, vehemently anti-weapon, was browsing this. The search history revealed more unsettling entries, missing person reports, directions to a remote, desolate location. Day by day, she withered. Laughter, smiles, intimacy vanished. Her shoes, perpetually mud-caked. Her phone, perpetually silent. Her computer, inexplicably malfunctioning the day after my discovery. A few days later, Shauna's car idled outside, packed with luggage. Shauna's anger was palpable. A fleeting look at my girlfriend, then a sigh, and she was gone. My girlfriend, ghost white, remained on the couch. One last, desperate query. I will be soon. She whispered. Shauna, it doesn't matter. I will be soon. I promise. The words hung and resolve in the oppressive silence. Days later, the silence persists. My girlfriend remains sequestered, taking personal time. The romantic possibility flickered, only to be extinguished by her fierce denial. Her eyes, when she spoke those words, were unfamiliar, distant. What is happening? My best friend, my lover, is lost, adrift in a sea of unspoken fear. I've exhausted every avenue. And yet, the chilling possibility of something truly horrific weighs heavily, a cold dread seeping into my bones. My thoughts, desperate pleas, unanswered questions, hang heavy in the suffocating silence. I am grasping at straws, praying for her return, praying that my fears are nothing more than the chilling whispers of a tormented mind. My past, A life spent on the wrong side of the law. A high school dropout. A youth wasted. Now feels insignificant compared to the present. This gaping void where my love once stood. My first arrest, sadly not my last throughout my 20s, was a stark marker. In and out of jail I went, until my 30th birthday forced a reckoning. Friendless, directionless, I sought solace, a purpose, in various churches and community groups. It was during this soul-searching that I encountered Elias. He was, precisely, the anchor I desperately needed. I met Elias at a church gathering. He identified as agnostic, a curious decoration in that setting. Yet he explained his attendance stemmed from the community's warmth. The people, he insisted, were extraordinarily friendly, a haven of camaraderie unmatched anywhere else. He was right. Their kindness was exceptional. I, inept at religious observances, couldn't even identify the denomination. All I knew was the overwhelming generosity. Elias was universally loved by everyone, even the church officials. His views on faith seemed irrelevant. His character transcended dogma. He tirelessly volunteered, donating clothes, food, but most importantly, his time. His wealth, the source remained a mystery, was channeled entirely for good. He aided the poor, tirelessly encouraging church attendance, personally serving meals in impoverished neighborhoods, extending help wherever needed. Elias was, undeniably, an extraordinary individual. Drawn to his unwavering goodness, I gravitated towards him. Without judgment, he welcomed me, taking me under his wing. I became his partner, assisting in his community work. His presence, it seemed, somehow absolved my past. My history ceased to matter. Only the present held significance. This continued for years. Elias evolved from partner to friend. When homelessness threatened, he offered me lodging in a small guest house behind his home. We'd rise early, embarking on our daily rounds of charitable acts. His resources seemingly inexhaustible, his generosity unquestioned. One afternoon, during a charity event, I noticed a shift. The ever-energetic, vibrant Elias seemed distant, -1, almost ethereal. That evening, returning to the guest house, I voiced my concern. A deep breath, a sigh, and a simple "I'm fine" were his only responses. Something was profoundly wrong. Later, peering through the guest house window, the lights of Elias's house illuminated the night. The blinds were open, offering an unsettlingly clear view into his home. 50 feet separated the buildings, close enough for clarity, yet distant enough to obscure details. A disquiet settled in my gut, a premonition born perhaps from years of witnessing the precipice of someone's breaking point. That moment of clarity, of recognition, reminded me of how often that feeling had marked my own life, often causing my downfall. It seemed Elias was teetering on that same edge. After some contemplation, I decided to check on him. I owed him, at the very least, this much. Approaching his house, yelling pierced the night. It was Elias, a torrent of rage, unlike anything I'd ever witnessed. He was on the phone, his voice a guttural scream, laced with obscenities, words I still find unbelievable. I crept closer, eavesdropping. I could only hear his side of the conversation. "I don't care if you don't get this done. I'll find someone else. I don't endure this daily for nothing. Get it done immediately, so I can finally escape this hell." He slammed the phone against the wall, his screams continuing unabated. Suddenly, he turned, catching me watching. I dove for cover, though I suspected he'd seen me, flat against the wall. I prayed he wouldn't open the door. My hope was short-lived. The door burst open. Elias screamed my name. I stood, mortified at being caught, yet strangely relieved that he seemed okay. For the moment, the man, whom I'd always perceived as placid, a paragon of patience, revealed a terrifyingly different face. His grip on my flannel shirt was like a vice, his strength unexpectedly brutal as he shoved me against the weathered clapboard of the house. A torrent of rage erupted, a deafening roar inches from my face. His spittle, hot and stinging, landed on my cheek. The words, a venomous spray, sliced through the frigid night air. After everything I've done for you, spying on my business, I remain mute, paralyzed by the sheer force of his fury. The words to explain my innocent intentions, a simple check on his well-being caught in my throat. He hurled me to the ground, the impact jarring my senses. The accusations, a relentless barrage, followed you. You're after my money. My denials, clumsy and unconvincing even to myself, were met with another brutal shove. A searing pain exploded in my face as his boot connected, a sickening crack echoing in the oppressive silence. Stay here, he roared, his voice cracking like splintering wood before he stormed back into the house, the door slamming shut with a bone-jarring thud. Disoriented, stars bloomed behind my eyelids. Slowly, I pushed myself up, the world swaying slightly. Through the grimy windowpane, I saw him ransacking an old chest, the rhythmic clanging of something heavy within its depths a chilling counterpoint to the desolate quiet. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced me. I fled, instinct propelling me towards the guest house. A few meager possessions clutched in my hands. I plunged into the concealing darkness of the woods bordering his property. There, in the shadows, I saw him buried. He was systematically dismantling the guest house door, his guttural shouts echoing through the trees. Stop running. I know you're here. He carried something long and narrow, a menacing silhouette against the inky blackness. It was vaguely reminiscent of a crowbar or something else entirely. The sounds of wood splitting under the force of his blows were a terrifying metronome, marking my desperate flight. I moved silently through the undergrowth, the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves thick in the frigid air. His enraged cry seemed to follow, but I reached the road unseen. I ran until my lungs burned, glancing back every few moments, half expecting to see him emerge from the trees, a malevolent specter pursuing me. Reaching a gas station, the flickering neon a beacon of hope, I sought help. The police arrived, and I recounted the events, the terror still gripping my heart. I had no cell phone, and little hope for any real justice. But I had to report the assault, the frantic chase, the unspoken dread. His arrest followed, the reason for it remaining a mystery. A Google search yielded nothing. Barry, I realized with a sickening lurch, wasn't even his real name. Years spent in his shadow, in what I believed to be a peaceful proximity, had been a charade. The man I knew, he was a fabrication, a carefully constructed illusion concealing a darkness I couldn't comprehend. I don't know if he intended further harm that night, but the brutal beating is a chilling testament to the potential for violence simmering beneath the surface of our supposed friendship. What secrets did he guard? What was the object he carried so fiercely? The questions remain unanswered, echoing in the cold silence, a constant and unsettling reminder of the terrifying unknown. The celebratory atmosphere of Nashville hung heavy, a cloying sweetness masking an underlying unease. Attempting a familiar dance move atop a bar. Tumble, her head striking the hardwood. A jarring crack, then silence. She seemed unharmed, yet the incident, a grotesque ballet of embarrassment, led to our expulsion. A series of escalating altercations and subsequent establishments followed. Mortified, yearned for the sanctuary of our rented house, a retreat from the escalating chaos. Megan, however, vehemently disagreed. Nashville's a party town, she insisted, her words sharp, echoing the discord in the air. If we wanted a house party, we should have stayed home. As maid of honor, I attempted to mediate, to gently steer the course towards Dee's wishes. But Megan remained unmoved. Your lane, she declared, her tone dripping with disdain. I'm staying. Dee, furious, retreated, leaving us behind. I offered Megan a ride later, a promise met with dismissive indifference. We returned to the house, the silence broken only by the rhythmic whirring of the Wii console, an oddly comforting counterpoint to the night's turbulence. That night, surprisingly, felt almost idyllic, a pocket of peace, then a swirling vortex of escalating tensions. The tranquility was shattered at 4 o'clock a.m. A single text message from Megan, timestamped to 30 in a photograph. For figures, middle fingers extended in a defiant salute, a typical Megan gesture, yet a chilling premonition clung to it. My call went straight to voicemail. Repeated texts met with silence. A frantic search of the house yielded nothing. Terror, cold and absolute, began to seep into my bones. I roused several of the other bridesmaids. Their responses to my desperate inquiry tinged with an unsettling mixture of relief and callousness, a chilling, whispered consensus of good riddance. Yet, a nagging worry persisted. Something felt profoundly wrong. Dee's awakening only amplified the growing unease. Her anxiety, a palpable thing, transforming into a frantic energy. Our flight loomed, a deadline pressing down on our already frayed nerves. The decision to contact the authorities hung in the air, a heavy weight threatening to crush us. Then, a call. Megan's voice, slurred and enraged, a torrent of accusations and invective, targeting me specifically. Her final words, raw and brutal, hung in the stunned silence. Leave me in Nashville. Bye. The afternoon stretched into a relentless pursuit, an exercise in futility. Her location was disabled. We were blocked. Boarding the plane felt like abandoning her to the unforgiving city. Days bled into weeks, then years. Sporadic inquiries yielded nothing. Online searches, missing persons reports, all fruitless. We concluded, with a painful mixture of relief and resignation, that wherever she was, she didn't want to be found. Until last week, a Friday evening, spent in the quiet solitude of my home. My boyfriend, away on business, a call to say goodnight turning into a FaceTime call. As he spoke, his voice trailed off, replaced by a chilling statement. There's someone else there. The closet door, ajar. A primal fear, cold and sharp, pierced me. He was toying with me. I convinced myself. Then, his face on the FaceTime screen ashen, shaken, unlike him. A text arrived. Even as we spoke, get out. Now. Someone's moving in the closet. My movements were deliberate, controlled, each step measured, reaching the kitchen, slipping on my shoes. I glanced back. Megan, in the doorway, her eyes, wild, predatory, a silent confrontation. Then, a voice, low and sinister. Ayaz, you left me in Nashville. My hands rose, a gesture of appeasement. My boyfriend, still on the phone, was coordinating with his roommates. The police were being dispatched, but before I could speak, the words again, sharper, fiercer. You left me in Nashville. Flight, pure, instinctive flight. I ran. She pursued, relentless, echoing that phrase, a chilling mantra. The distant gleam of police lights a lifeline. I signaled desperately. Then, A collision. Megan tackled me before the officer could even fully exit his vehicle. Screams, guttural sounds, a terrifying cacophony, unintelligible apprehension, a knife concealed. The purpose remains unknown. The aftermath is a blur. A lawyer, utter disorientation. Megan, a fractured reflection of herself, a hollow shell, a friendship that burned too brightly, too briefly. Nashville, a haunting echo, leaving her. The weight of that decision settles heavily. Self-recrimination, despite reassurances, a fervent hope for her recovery, a plea for guidance, for understanding, kindness, always kindness. You never truly know the darkness that resides within a person. Your spent tending bar, inherited from my father, Boris, a regular, a fixture, an old friend. Then, my father's passing, Boris, inconsolable, sobbing, a sight I never imagined. 20 years, and I'd never witnessed his depth of grief. He was a large man, a soft accent I could never quite place, a friendship forged over decades, predating the bar itself, its origins a mystery. He always had a tale, a colorful yarn. To see him so broken, I poured several drinks, a small tribute. The bar closed, but he remained, incapable of driving. Come on, Boris, I urged. You're not driving tonight. I'll take you home. A familiar journey, countless rides before, 2 minutes away. If the lights cooperated, I started to shut down the bar. Boris, let's go. I called out again, my voice sharper. He remained unmoved. I sat beside him, a comforting hand on his shoulder, yet a growing unease coiled in my gut. A weak voice, broken, confessed, I'm not the man you think I am. Getting older, death makes you think. A nod, a silent affirmation. I didn't know what to say. Then, his enormous hand slammed the counter. Tears streamed down his face. I've done things you can't imagine. Where I came from, it was the only way, and I liked it. I never thought I'd feel like this though. He was drunk, lost in a haze of sorrow and something else, something far darker. The words hung in the oppressive silence. A terrifying admission. Stable. Okay, buddy, let's get you out of here, I offered, my voice a careful calm as I rose. Boris, surprisingly swift for a man of his age and in his condition, mirrored my movement. A giant. He dwarfed me. A child beside him. He seized my shirt, his grip harsh, jostling me like a rag doll. You don't understand. I've done things. I'm not a good man. I see the faces. Every night. I see the faces. His words were punctuated by a raw, guttural scream. His pain palpable. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. He backed me into a corner, his words lost in the cacophony of my own terror. My mind raced, desperately seeking a solution, a way to neutralize this escalating crisis. Then, as abruptly as the terror began, it shifted. He spun, collapsing onto a bar stool, sobs racking his frame. You think you know me. Your father, he knew. He's gone now, just like everyone else. A guttural torrent of unintelligible sounds erupted, a language alien yet charged with primal fury. Stools flew, tables overturned. I remained frozen, a coward in the corner, my keys and phone abandoned behind the bar. His gaze, finally, settled on me one last time. Faces won't haunt me anymore. I won't let them. And then, with a speed defying his age and size, he vanished. I sat there, paralyzed, the silence heavy with the echoes of his outburst. Minutes bled into an eternity as I struggled to process the surreal events. Finally, I rose, a desperate chase fueling my movements. But the street was empty, his form swallowed by the night. I searched, driving aimlessly, the hope of finding him dwindling with each empty street. His house yielded nothing but silence. My call to the authorities laid bare the chilling reality. Boris was missing, vanished without a trace. His car remained, a silent sentinel in his empty driveway. No family, no clues, just a void, a gaping hole where a man once stood. As I write this, he remains missing, and the unsettling truth lingers. The man I'd spoken with countless times, the man I considered a friend, had shattered, his buried demons finally unleashed. A cataclysmic unraveling, leaving only a chilling emptiness in its wake. The power flickered, then died. That's all we knew. 2 years later, scattered and attempting normalcy, my friend and I conceived a reunion, a winter break gathering. We mailed the 14 of us, anticipating a nostalgic weekend of gaming. Only 6 responded, a double share of chips, soda, and alcohol for everyone. Among them, Mark, the one who'd stared into the abyss of the malfunctioning computer. He wasn't the same. Random calls, the rasping shriek of dial-up modems, their phantom soundtrack, his pager incessant messages. Let's play. I'm your new friend. Please don't ignore me. He'd destroyed it, convinced it was a prank, until his mother and sister received the same chilling invitations. Even after their move, the calls persisted, sporadic but terrifying. Odd, senderless emails echoed the message. We tried to reassure him. Video games? We suggested. Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, the familiar rhythm of the controller, a balm to frayed nerves. Then, the inevitable. During a Mario Kart race, a jump on Rainbow Road, the game froze, a fractured cacophony of sound. Then, yet, an 8-bit sprite, a malevolent pixie, frozen beside the cart. Power cycling failed. The image, unrelenting. Mark's composure shattered. I told you, he whispered, his voice edged with hysteria. It's following me. We attempted rationalizations, CRT glitches, dust, insects, anything to quell the rising dread. GoldenEye, the same unsettling presence, the chilling figure, a silent taunt. The weight of unspoken fear settled upon us, a suffocating blanket. That night, drunken confessions and shared anxieties. Then, Mark's pager. Come back. It paused. He hurled it through the window. A desperate, futile act. Early 2006. 7 years. An email. Mark, I need your help. Don't reply. X Park. 2 days. I hesitated. Then, the memory of the Creator, alone, haunted me. I couldn't abandon him. I went. A pistol-a-grin companion. He was a stranger, hollow-eyed, gaunt, a wraith of his former self. Instinct gripped me. The gun. What happened? I demanded. He lunged, a broken plea for solace. I recoiled. I can't. It follows me. He stammered, eyes wide with terror. Every screen, every game, everywhere. I have to get rid of it. The ire. That's what he called it. He couldn't escape. Letters. Come back. I'm waiting. I just want to play. He was frantic, attracting unwanted attention. What do I do? I asked, grabbing his shoulders. His response, a chilling echo of isolation. You're the only one who can. They saw it too. They ignored me. I told him to go home, to seek professional help, a software expert, maybe, but I knew, as I spoke, that I couldn't fix this. I couldn't, and frankly, I didn't want to. A profound sense of helplessness, a chilling premonition, settled over me as I turned to leave. A flicker of pity, Unmisplaced compassion. I gave him the few dollars I possessed, urged him to leave. He nodded, a flash of yellowed teeth in the dim light, then vanished towards the nearest bus stop. I retreated, the gun a cold weight in my pocket. Months later, another email, a similar address, a different tone. Thank you for your help. I've dealt with him. He's gone. Thank you again. Deleted. Email account deleted. Silence. Until the nightly visits began. Yours. A figure. -1 feet tall. I estimate. Impossibly old. At least 70. Always cloaked in heavy layers of formless presence. Male. A pronoun. Perhaps. A placeholder. He never entered my room. That I'm certain of. Yet, he tried. Mostly, he remained outside, pressed against the glass of the double doors leading to my deck, accessible by an external staircase. I removed the steps last month. Success. I thought. That night, nothing. But the next morning, my 16-year-old cat, Mango, shoved through the ground floor mail slide. I replaced the steps. His first visit was unnerving. I hadn't yet hung curtains. His lower face, pressed against the glass. A thick hood obscured his eyes. His mouth opened. He licked the glass. A small, circular motion. His wrinkled hands scraped against the door. A hideous screeching sound. I screamed, fumbling for my phone. A fist slammed against the door. He turned, leaped over the railing. 3 stories. A sheer cliff. A field below. Most would survive. Injured. Certainly. Yet, an elderly man? Broken legs. Surely. The police found boot prints. A trail through tall grass. Long strides. A sprint. An injured. The trail led into the woods, a makeshift camp, a pup tent, fire pit, a gruesome pile of dead rodents. One impaled. I demanded its removal. Every night, around 1 a.m., he returned. The police? He vanished. A shotgun. Vigilance. But he only appears when I doze. The squeaking. He ensures I know. Then, he leaves. If I intervene, something breaks. The stairs. My cat. Now. Curtains. I avoid the deck. The squeaking only evidence of his persistence. Attempts to move. A birch bark note slipped into my mailbox, detailing the personal information of my family. The listing withdrawn. Vacations resulted in broken windows, destroyed plants, a ravaged yard. Once, my goldfish, fried in a pan. The police urged me to leave. The note, I dare not mention it. Since the stairs incident, a boldness, a growing terror, glimpses, fleeting, always sending me scrambling to my bedroom. The rattle of doors, simultaneous. He wants in. For now, I'm safe. The shotgun, a comfort. He's been inside. I'm sure of it, but never my room. I've barricaded myself. You see, the outside stairs, the only route, are gone. I've sealed the bedroom door. The deck doors remain my only exit. Eventually, I must leave. And I know he'll be waiting. The confession hangs heavy, a suffocating weight upon my soul. I pray for absolution, for my family's peace. Yet the telling itself feels like a tearing of flesh. I'd striven for redemption, dedicated years to acts of kindness. Yet the shadow of my past clings to me. At 24, a reckless youth, I fell prey to the siren song of the underworlders. Parties, a descent into the abyss. Initially, the addiction was a manageable beast, a companion that allowed normalcy to persist. But the insidious tendrils of methamphetamine tightened their grip. Soon, the high became a constant necessity, an all-consuming need. Friends vanished. My job dissolved into dust. I became a ghost, haunting the streets, resorting to theft to fuel my insatiable craving. The highs were a feverish haze, a self-imposed oblivion within the squalor of derelict drug dens. The withdrawals, a descent into madness, a chilling, bone-deep emptiness. I became a creature driven by desperate need, capable of anything. One night, completely devoid of the drug's illusory comfort, I begged, pleaded with dealers. My pleas met only with callous indifference. Desperation clawed at me. The agonizing pulse of withdrawal hammered against my skull. A relentless rhythm of torment. I wandered, a predator seeking prey, into unfamiliar territory. A middle-class neighborhood, a place I'd usually avoid. A car alarm shrieked, a jarring sound cutting through the heavy night, sending me scrambling into the shadows. A corner my trembling refuge. Then I saw it. A house on a quiet cul-de-sac, its front door ajar. A warm, inviting glow beckoning me like a malevolent moth to a flame. The welcome mat lay askew, a deceptive barrier to what lay within. No one seemed to be around. A silent invitation to sin. I slipped inside. The warmth was a stark contrast to the gnawing cold of the night. The aroma, a hypnotic spell. For a moment, I allowed myself to drift, lost in the bittersweet phantom of happier times. Then the purse on the counter snapped me back to the present. A desperate search produced a thick wallet, a small fortune, $100. Euphoria bloomed. Turning to leave, I froze. A little girl stood in the doorway, her eyes wide, questioning. Our gazes locked. A silent, agonizing exchange. The rush of emotions ecstatic high. The chilling horror of the situation threatened to overwhelm me. Panic, raw and primal, seized me, as if possessed. I lunged, my hand silencing the beginning of her scream. Terror constricted my chest. She struggled, her muffled cries a desperate plea. Her teeth sank into my hand, a sharp, searing pain. In a moment of blind rage, I slapped her, a yelp, and then silence. As the screams ceased, upstairs, a sound of shuffling, a creak. My senses returned, flooded with cold, stark clarity. I fled. The sound of her renewed cries, her father's enraged shouts, receding into the distance, the image of her terrified face, the guilt that weighed heavier than lead. The night continued in a blur of escape and the numbing embrace of the drug. Later, in the wretchedness of that drug den, I anxiously scanned the news. I got away with it, but the image of that childhood terror, her pine haunts me still, 12 years clean, and the weight of that night, that terrible act, remains. May God forgive me. It was not my best moment. The next incident occurred years later, during the holiday rush at Pizza Hut. Officially a customer service representative, I was essentially a phone-answering kitchen slave. A slow Monday night, one of the delivery drivers had been sent home. Despite still being in training, I was handling a few simple deliveries in hopes of a promotion. At 9:50 p.m., 10 minutes before closing, the phone rang. Thanks for calling Pizza Hut. My name is Annan. Would you like to hear our specials? Or are you ready to order? Before I could finish, the man on the other end interrupted, his voice muffled, his speech slurred. Are any of your drivers female? A guttural grunt. Then, the request, breadsticks, extra marinara. He gave me the address. A 15-minute delivery. Before I could disconnect, his voice, slurred and urgent. Send a good-looking driver. They'll get a hefty tip. A raucous laugh followed, a second voice joining in. A physical recoil. Not the first, tactless, inebriated, patron. I ended the call. The oven. Breadsticks. My bag, the GPS coordinates punched in. 5 minutes later, the outskirts. An empty lot, trees pressing in like a suffocating shroud. A trailer a quarter-mile down a barely there road. I parked. Nothing. No one. A sigh of relief. Quickly cut short. Movement. A flicker in the rearview mirror. The back door. Opening. A figure. Looming at the passenger side. The sickening realization. They were here. Thank God. The engine still ran. I slammed the accelerator. A jarring thud. Screams. A frantic glance in the mirror. One sprawled on the asphalt. Another pursuing. Homeless. The thought evaporated with the sharp crack of two gunshots. Panic seized me. I hunched over the wheel, a prayer forming on my lips. The back door flapping in the wind like a wounded bird. Back in town. Safe. Miraculously unscathed. Trembling violently, I pulled over to call to my boss. His calming words. The police station. The report. The following day. Asts. Not frat boys, but to men with rap sheets longer than CVS receipts. Armed, high on methamphetamine. The terror, the sheer, visceral terror, remains etched into my memory. The delivery service. Over. Finished. Later. A Western Canadian city. A music tour. Night. A rented bicycle. A shortcut through a public park. Sounds a struggle. A woman's voice. Laced with terror. A man's. Silencing her. I froze. Rooted to the spot. A rationalization attempt failed. This was raw. Brutal reality. A woman. Violated. By more than one. The knight in shining armor fantasy shattered. Fight or flight? Neither. A paralyzing stasis. Then, a shadow. A cigarette ember. Bobbing closer. Another figure. Tall. Gaunt. He was beside them. Another scream. Male this time. The tall man. Extinguishing his cigarette in the attacker's eye. A vicious stomp. The ground seemed to tremble. He pursued the fleeing thugs. A dead end. Near the public restrooms. Gravel crunching under his feet. He collected stones, hurling them with deadly accuracy. Screams of pain. Then silence. He knelt over them. I couldn't see, but the screams ceased. Movement. Another thought. No. The woman. Running towards the tall man. Pulling her clothes back on. Thanking him. Bowing her head. Tears streaming down her face. He grunted. A voice like a cartoon villain's. Piss off. Go to the hospital. A cigarette lit. He vaulted the park fence, vanishing into the night, just as neighbors appeared. The flickering streetlight cast long, distorted shadows, accentuating the oppressive silence. A chilling dampness permeated the air, seeping into my very bones. We were stopped at a red light, a beat-up Holden, and an unsettling party bus flanking us. My window was down, the humid air fogging the glass. The bus, it was wrong, completely blacked out windows, yet marred by haphazard strips of black tape, peeling at the edges. A faded, rusted white paint peeked through. Silence, an unnerving, absolute silence. No music, no laughter, no murmur of conversation, no movement. Then, a scream, raw, agonizing, from inside the bus. The light changed. We moved. A shared, unspoken terror binding us. He glanced at me. I at him. That was odd, wasn't it? I stammered, an awkward laugh catching in my throat. Yes. She breathed, her voice barely audible. Oh, crap. It's following us. The bus. It was following us. Nando's. The refuge of a crowded restaurant. 20 minutes of strained silence, punctuated only by the clinking of cutlery and hushed conversations. We emerged. Cautiously. There it was. The bus. Slow. Deliberate. Passing the shopping center entrance. A chilling circuit. It seemed. We fled. That night, it was the last time we saw it. Paranoid, perhaps, but the memory clings. A cold, unsettling weight. Friends dismissed it, and our project, a bizarre prank, a DIY disaster. They speculated. Yet, the image of that silent, ominous bus circling the shopping center for what felt like an eternity, it haunts me. My parents, no memory of it at all. Years earlier, a summer cookout. My grandparents' home. Laughter. The scent of grilling meat. A festive atmosphere. Then, him, emerging from the woods. A figure that seemed to materialize from the shadow's ragged clothes. A haunted look. The unsteady gait of a derelict. I pointed. My father reacted instantly. A sharp, urgent command. Everyone. Inside. Now. The transition was abrupt, unsettling. The cheerful camaraderie shattered. My father, my uncle, both lieutenants, armed, their faces etched with a fear far deeper than I'd ever witnessed. They weren't merely concerned. They were terrified. The door slammed shut, sealing us in a suffocating silence. The memory remains. A disquieting enigma, a childhood encounter that refuses to yield its secrets. The palpable fear of my father, a seasoned officer, remains the most haunting aspect. The house, built like a fortress, even dwarfed my grandfather, a towering auto mechanic, minus 1'6" and 320 pounds of solid muscle. I recall, with chilling clarity, watching from the kitchen window, a gaunt, elderly homeless man, his hair the color of ash, shuffled amongst the picnic tables, picking up discarded burgers and hot dogs. He took a bite of each, then dropped them to the ground. 6 years old. A wave of furious helplessness washed over me. My father and uncle remained immobile, their gazes fixed on the figure outside. My mother's question hung in the air, unspoken yet palpable. Aren't you going to do something? My father's silence was a stark response. An uncle made a move to intervene, but a single, sharp look from my grandfather stopped him. Then, the inexplicable. The man overturned a table, sending food flying, erupting in a bizarre, chilling laugh. He stumbled away, towards town, his final act being a vicious kick to our barbecue grill. The image burned into my memory. Years later, I questioned my parents, a cousin who was present that day. Silence. My mother dismissed it as a dream, but the memory remains. Vivid, inexplicable. Our old house stood on a corner lot. The L-shaped backyard held a side yard and a small deck, extending around the back. Patio doors in the dining room opened onto this space, our setting for countless summer barbecues. At 14, our family shared only one desktop computer, a source of endless sibling rivalry, especially since it was the sole machine capable of running Diablo 2. A fragile truce was established. Turns were carefully negotiated. My brother's turn, I retreated to the kitchen with my laptop, absorbed in fan fiction. A preemptive sense of satisfaction filled me. The desktop would be mine tomorrow, lost in my writing. A sharp rap at the patio door startled me. I looked up, expecting a sibling, one of my brother's friends. The basement door opened directly onto the deck. There, a small, chubby figure, a bloody pig mask obscuring their face, stood naked. The night air was biting. They simply waved, a grotesque gesture, thinking it a juvenile prank. I mouthed, "Good one," offering a thumbs up. They turned and left. I chuckled, closing my laptop, descending to playfully talk my brother and his friends. Their denials echoed in the game room, where they sat, engrossed in PlayStation. The impossibility of their claim. The sheer impossibility of the speed and silence. The physique didn't match any of them. The mystery remains. Later, I learned a neighbor discovered a pig's head, a real one, in their backyard. The Sao Paulo apartment complex. A stark contrast to the sprawling houses of my childhood. 40 stories, each floor teeming with 25 apartments. A hive of activity. College students. Young family as a vibrant. Intense energy. Friday nights were especially frenetic. I worked late, returning home around 1 o'clock a.m. The elevator. A typical Friday night spectacle. The usual chaotic mix of inebriated individuals and other things. I pressed the button for the 11th floor. As the door sealed shut, I noticed him, a figure in the corner, cloaked in a ski mask and thick gloves. Escape was impossible. Trapped. The primal instinct to ignore the unsettling situation. I faced the door, my thoughts a whirlwind of escalating fear. 7 floors to go. I fumbled for my keys, instinctively forming a makeshift claw, a desperate preparation for self-defense. Just then, a drip, a tiny, sickening red pool at his feet. My gaze followed. The elevator doors hissed open, revealing a glint of steel, a massive military knife, dripping crimson. My pitiful key, intended as a weapon, felt utterly ludicrous. A shrill ding, my floor, stiff with dread. I practically sprinted to my apartment, slamming the door behind me. Through the peephole, I saw him remain in the elevator. Only after what felt like an eternity did a semblance of calm settle upon me. Sleep, however, remained elusive. The following day, a murder, a police officer's knock, a routine check. Had I seen anything? The query hung in the suffocating air. I declined. Drug-related violence wasn't uncommon. It wasn't my concern. Besides, testifying would mean missing work, an unacceptable prospect. The officer's departure left a chilling emptiness. For weeks after, the stairs replaced the elevator. Then, a fleeting image on the television screen. The suspect apprehended. A police officer. Yellowstone. A family hiking trip. My stepmother. Her children. My father. My older and younger brothers. We adored my stepmother. Her youthful spirit was a stark contrast to my father's more reserved nature. The tour of the geysers and hot springs, my father and cousins were engrossed, while we lingered with my stepmother, sharing laughter and stories. The park's beauty was breathtaking, the atmosphere buoyant. Yet, a seed of unease took root when she proposed hot potting. Mimicking the tour guide's enthusiastic description of the hot springs' purported therapeutic benefits. A terrible idea, I thought, but kept silent. We were already swept up in her infectious energy, as my stepmother and older brother ventured off-trail, inspecting smaller pools. I confided in my younger brother, a shared apprehension solidifying between us. Then, a scream. Piercing, unimaginable. My stepmother's voice, raised in a terror I'd never heard before. Panic seized us. We stumbled upon her, waist deep in a pool, not the vibrant hues of the other springs, but a horrifying, crimson abyss. The water, boiling, was cooking her alive, her skin, blanching, flaking, a grotesque parody of life. She clawed at her abdomen, tearing at her shorts, revealing flesh fused to her skin, ripped away in a horrifying spectacle. Her screams a desperate plea for help. The belt. Pull me out. My younger brother and I were frozen, paralyzed by horror. My older brother attempted to reach her, but the belt slipped, lost in the boiling red. He fled for help, leaving me shielding my brother's eyes from the unspeakable. Her despairing gaze, a silent question unanswered, etched itself onto my soul. Time stretched, distorted. Then, a stillness. The cessation of her screams brought, shamefully, a brief, fleeting respite.